very good evening to one and all, and a very, very happy new year. I hope this year brings a lot of healthiness and prosperity to one and all. Welcome to our webinar session brought to you by Project StepOne on medications prescribing with precision. I'd like to welcome our speakers of the day, Dr. Pratibha-Dr, Professor and Head Pharmacology from Dr. Chandrama Dayanand Sagar Institute of Medical Education and Research. We also have Dr. Shiv-Murthy, who is Associate Professor from Dr. Chandrama Dayanand Sagar Institute of Medical Education and Research, Dayanand Sagar University. He is also a founder president of Medical Pharmacologists Society. We have Dr. Veena, who is Associate Professor of Department of Pharmacology, BGS-GIMS. I welcome all the speakers for the evening and thank you so much for joining us, Doctor. I am Shruti Bhardwaj, your host and a proud volunteer at Project Step One. Project Step One is a 100% volunteer run free telemedicine service. We are a 7-month-old initiative that provides free telemedicine to COVID-19 impacted citizens across 16 states in India's 18 languages. We have touched more than 50 million lives through 1 million consultations. This has been possible because of a community of citizen volunteer doctors and expert counselors. Dear doctors and citizens, your 1 hour per day can save thousands of lives. Project Step One is an impactful citizen and doctor driven initiative, and it needs to spread wider and to be able to get COVID under control in India. Dear doctors watching this session, give us a missed call on 08047192219. I'll repeat the number 08047192219 to join the largest doctor volunteer group. Dear citizens who wish to volunteer can give us a missed call on 08061972266. Thank you so much. About today's session, medications have been useful in many life saving situations. However, it is not prescribed judiciously and with precision. They cause disasters. So, this webinar is all about addressing these issues. I quickly hand it over to Dr. Pratibha Nadik for the session. Over to you, madam.
Thank you, Shruti. Uh, at the outset, I thank Project Step One for giving us this opportunity. I am with my colleagues and very close friends of mine, Dr. Veena and Dr. Shiva-Murthy. So, this session is actually designed for both patients as well as doctors. Basically, we want to orient or we want to upgrade the doctors, young doctors, on what is happening recently with reference to the use of medications. So, as we all know, to have a successful practice, we need to have good prescriptions. Doctors, the patients are looking forward at the doctor's prescriptions. Very olden days, we used to say, not very olden days, I should say about 10 to 20 years ago, we used to say um, any handwriting which is not legible is doctor's handwriting. So doctors are really busy people who do not who do not have enough time to write prescription in detail. Not that they are not concerned, but they presume that the patients do understand or the pharmacist understands. But that is not really the case. Sometimes, when these prescriptions are not legibly written, or if there's any ambiguity, then it leads to a lot of patient safety issues. Apart from writing it legibly, nowadays we have this technology because of which we have printed format of prescriptions. In spite of that, it's not available everywhere, so it's not feasible for all the doctors to get a printed format of prescription. Therefore, it's necessary that we all use a proper method and how to write what is expected by the government now that the rules and regulations are so strict. We need to understand that. Secondly, we need to have the right choice of drug, which depends on the patient's individual composition. Each patient is unique. Thirdly, we need to have what is called evidence based medicine. All the prescriptions or medications that we prescribe should have some rationale or evidence for using them in that particular patient. Therefore, it's essential for us to understand how to write, what is in recent developments in writing prescriptions, what is a rational way of choosing them, how to communicate with the patients, and what is the patient's responsibility in making that prescription effective. So that is going to be our first talk by Dr. Veena RM. I would like to briefly introduce and then hand it over to her. So, Dr. Veena is currently working as Associate Professor in the Department of Pharmacology at BGS GIMS Bangalore. She has completed MD Pharmacology in the year 2006 with a gold medal in the Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences. Since then, she has worked in pharma industries and she is taking care of clinical trials and various regulatory aspects of the institutions in her institution. Currently, she is involved in various educational activities in the college, particularly the medical education technology, and she is coordinating regulatory trials, participating as investigators, overseeing the medication safety, and also involved in molecular research. I welcome Dr. Veena. Over to you, Dr. Veena. We are thankful to you for having accepted this invitation. Her
It's my
topic
privilege,
is,
ma'am.
yeah, she's going to
Thank you,
deal with
ma'am.
rational. Yes, over to you.
Thank you, ma'am, for that kind introduction. I would also like to thank StepOne for giving me an opportunity to share my views on rational prescribing. So, without me wasting much time, I will right away start off with my presentation. Can I have my slides, Shruti?
Doing that in a minute, doctor.
Okay. Okay. Next. Okay. So, we're going to start off with prescribing with precision. So, a role of medication in day-to-day life. Do I have 20 minutes?
Yeah, yes, you have
Oh,
20 minutes.
slide one. Can we go back to the other slide? Previous slide? Yeah. So, what is the role of medication in day-to-day life? Do we really need medicines? Medicines, definitely, we need medicines. Definitely, medicines are important in our day-to-day life for addressing health problems. All of us know, and also to improve the quality of lives. So, they are the indispensable component of health systems in prevention, diagnosis, and treatment. So, universal health coverage can only be achieved when the medicines are available at affordable prices, when they're safe, and when they're effective. But there are a wide range of obstacles to achieve this, like rising prices, shortages of medicine, out of stock. Medicines are out of stock sometimes, and the availability of the substandard medicines. Another added challenge to this is appropriate use of medicines, which is lacking for all the reasons well known for, which I will be addressing few of them today. One example I can quote is emerging antimicrobial resistance, from which many drugs have been withdrawn. He is withdrawing the drug from the market of solution. Next. So if you look at the slide, it is a slide which tells you about the drug discovery and the drug development development process. Do we have any idea how long it takes for a new drug to get approved? Almost 12 to 15 years, though it has been reduced to 7 to 8 years. Almost it takes 12 to 15 years. It has to go through molecular studies, cellular studies, animal studies, different phases of human studies, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Then it comes to the market. After coming to the market, again it is under the scrutiny, phase 4 studies, after the regulatory body approves. So roughly one third of duration of our profession career of any of us goes by this discovery. And how much investment goes into it? Approximately 1 billion. So regulatory approval takes 6 to 10 months, and approximately it costs 1 billion. So approval of a new drug is a massive undertaking. Therefore, right drugs should stay in the market. Banning the drug or withdrawing the drug is not a solution. So coming to the next slide, why does the health system can we go to the next slide? So despite this, why does the health system fail? Where does it fail? Who is responsible for this? So in a study by WHO, it has been reported that 50% of the fault lies within the doctor. 50% of the fault lies in the patient. So 50% of the medicines are inappropriately prescribed, dispensed and sold, and 50% of the patients fail to take medications. Coming to the next slide. So if you let us have a look at this inappropriate prescribing practices. This is one of the case scenario. So whenever a child or even the adult walks into the clinic for the diarrhea, there is overuse of antibiotics and also antidiarrheals. which can be definitely tackled with the ORS and zinc. But still, the prescription will have antibiotics, which antibiotics themselves induce the diarrhea. Coming to the next case. So here, if you look at this, most of the visits during the colder months will be for the respiratory infections, acute respiratory infections. So most of the prescriptions will have antibacterial drugs at the inadequate dosage. If you look at this graph, usually 5 to 7 days is required. It is usually the viral infection. It takes 5 to 7 days, and it doesn't require antibiotics. So only in case the fever persists, you have to do the lab investigations, then go for the antibiotics. But still, most of the respiratory infections, the prescriptions, if you look at it, most of them will have antibiotics. Come at the next case. So you can see most of the prescriptions will have antibiotics. On the top of it, they will be loaded with tonics and multivitamins too. Next. Okay, this is also one of the inappropriate prescribing practice when there is a requirement for an oral formulation. When the tablet will suffice the condition, injections are given. For example, analgesic, 1 tablet of diclofenac will do for the pain. But usually, diclo injections are used for the rapid and prompt response, which is definitely not required. Coming to the next case. If you look at this, when you start giving the prescriptions, patients have a habit of giving prescriptions and start self-medicating. Often this leads to the non-adherence to the regimen and discontinuation of the prescription in between. So this usually happens with the antibiotics and also analgesics. Next. So do we really need to tackle this issue? Definitely, there is a need to tackle this irrational use of medications, because if you look at this, 25 to 70% of the overall health expenditure in the developing countries, especially countries like India, is spent on medicines. And if you compare that with the developed countries, only 10% of the revenue is spent on the health expenditure. So definitely, this issue needs to be tackled. So the concept of rational use of medicines is not a new one. It's definitely an old one, which dates back to 300 BC, when Greek physician Herophilus said that medicines are nothing in themselves but are at the hands of the gods if employed with the reason and prudence. Next. So then what is rational prescribing? What do you mean by rational prescribing? So rational prescribing, there is, yeah. So what do you mean by rational prescribing? Is it a mix and match of drug and disease? Is it a choice of a correct drug for a disease, or just mere matching of the drugs with the disease? Definitely not. It is not just mere matching, mix and match of the drugs with the disease. Then what is it? Next. So rational prescribing practice as given by the WHO. It is the prescribing right drug in adequate dose for the sufficient duration and appropriate to the clinical needs of the patient at the lowest effect. Next. Okay, then what constitutes a good prescribing? There should be an appropriate indication, appropriate drug, appropriate dose, route of administration and duration, appropriate patient, correct dispensing techniques, and after all this, there should be adequate monitoring of the prescription and the patient. So what are the factors which affects this rational prescribing? So the rational prescribing habits, it's not the responsibility, does not just is not only of the doctors. It is there are so many factors which affect this. It is from the patient side, it is from the pharmaceutical companies, and also from the doctors. Looking at some of the patient related factors here. So let us have a look at this. Patients have this perception that there is a pill for every ill. You know what happens when they have this attitude? This exerts undue pressure on the doctors to prescribe medicines even when not needed. If we look at our previous slides, look at the respiratory infection prescription, look at the diarrheal infection prescription. Doctors are forced to write the anti-diarrhea, bacterial medicines, anti-diarrheal medicines, though it is not required. So this is one of the attitude from the patients. So in India, if you don't prescribe, patients tend to think that doctors have taken several years to pass the MBBS. So this is also one of the pressure. This is also the pressure based upon the doctors to prescribe the unnecessary medications. Okay, now study by Mark Farlane. Uh, it has investigated the impact of the patient pressure on antibiotic prescribing in the management of respiratory infections. It was studied in 76 primary care facilities. And you know what were the results? The results were 74% of the prescriptions contained antibiotics, of which 30% were required, and 40%, 4% of the prescriptions, doctors were forced to write the antibiotics because of the patient pressure. Coming to the next slide. Now, what are the prescriber related factors? There are many internal and external factors which influence the doctors to write the prescription. One, there may be inadequate training, there may be lack of training, knowledge, there may be lack of knowledge of the prescriber. Each one of us also have a role models, who we follow. So we might follow our teachers in prescribing habits, we might follow them, pick up their habits. There may be lack of opportunities to attend the continuous medical educations to keep our knowledge updated. There may be workplace issues. There may be lack of laboratory facilities, which is very typical in primary care centers, especially in India, which is one of the main reasons for inappropriate prescribing. Example, when patient walks in with the respiratory infections, patient wants or any kind of infections, urinary tract infections, lack of culture unit to rule out the infections, the doctor might force himself to give the empirical treatment. And not only that, if you look into the government hospitals, there are the patient load is very high, and they are under staffed, and also there is time constraints. There may be a lack of medicine shortages. These are some of the doctor related factors. Coming to the next slide. Then what are these pharmaceutical related factors? As I mentioned in my previous slides, a drug to come to the market at least takes 12 to 15 years. This is an investment which was very costly, lot of manpower. So the companies are in the process to recover. Previous slide, please. The company are in the process to recover the cost and also to make the profit. This is where our sales representatives prepare to pitch in. They often exaggerate the effect of their drugs compared to the competitor drugs. They may bring out the articles, promotional literatures where the prescriber may slip for the unethical inducements. There may be gifts, dinners, and conferences. So these are some of the company-related factors which influence the prescribing habits. Coming to the next slide. So what are the impacts of the irrational use of medicines? Many, as you can see. There are many which are mentioned on the slides. To mention a few important ADRs, that is adverse drug reactions. So there are a lot of adverse drug reactions, and the cost of managing adverse drug reactions is enormous, especially in the geriatric patients and also in the patients with comorbidities, patients with polypharmacy, that is patients who are having on the drugs at least more than 5 drugs. I think Dr. Shimurthy will be addressing on ADRs in his next presentations in depth. And the other factors, what are the impact? The other factors are there is possibility of developing the drug dependence. Example, analgesics. They'll start taking analgesics as and when possible, and possibility of self-medication using the same prescriptions in case they have fever or any infections. And all this leads to the wastage of scarce health resources. For example, very recently during the corona infections, everybody started purchasing the HCQ. So HCQ was not available for the patients because everybody started using it. So this is one of the example. And also this inappropriate practices also includes the overuse of injections instead of tablets wherever required. So these injections might lead to the abscess, injection related, some of the injection related uh, side effects like abscess, HIV, HBV, and so on. Coming to the next slide. Can you please put the whole slide? Now, what are the strategies? Can you put the whole thing, Shruti? Yeah, all there. Okay, fine. So there are strategies. There are some of the strategies. Yes, I can understand. There are a lot of hindrances which we mentioned. There are a lot of blockages for making our prescription rational. But definitely there are strategies for good prescribing practices. There are, as we know, the stakeholders are here are doctors, caretakers, and also the patients. So what are the strategies that can be adopted by the doctor? Uh, as soon as the patient walks in and you identify the patient, diagnose the patient, so define the patient's problem. And the next step is to specify the therapeutic objective. What do you want to achieve with the treatment? What are the short-term objectives and what are the long-term objectives? This comes into picture when we are treating not the acute cases, as in case of mild infections, mild diarrhea, mild fever, nothing. But when it comes to chronic progressive diseases like diabetes, hypertension, hyperlipidemia, cancer, lung diseases, which are chronic and also progressive, you need to specify your objectives. What are the short-term objectives and what are the long-term objectives? Verify the suitability of your P treatment. That is, choose the P treatment. What is P? It is a personalized medicine. So start the treatment, give the information and instructions and warnings. So take some time to give the instructions to the patients, and also after prescribing, see to it that you follow up with the patient and you monitor the treatment. Coming to the next slide. Okay, let us take an example here. So you can see a patient walks hypertension, who is hypertension, who has hypertension. He's an hypertensive patient. So these are some of the drugs which are there. You can see a lot of drugs are available in the market. The list of drugs over there. Not only that, there are a lot of FDCs too. If a patient is having only is only hypertensive, then the problem ends there. But usually they are with the comorbidities like diabetes, cardiovascular disease, renal disease, liver disease, a list of diseases. That is where you have to make your step planning of how to prescribe the drugs. Coming to the next slide. So as I said, you need to define the problem of the patient. You need to identify the objectives. What are the objectives in this case? It's short-term objectives and the long-term objectives. Short-term is to control the hypertension. Long-term is to prevent the complications caused by hypertension. So, prevent the diseases, prevent the complications of the hypertension. So how do you do this? You you prefer the P drugs based on the guidelines. Always choose guidelines. Next. That was one of the example. Do you think that for making the prescription rational, do the patients have the role? Definitely patients do have the role. In order to make sure that the patient gets the right prescription, it is the responsibility of the patient also to make certain that following questions have been answered before he leaves the clinic. So what are those questions? Whether the medicines are readily available and how long the medicines have to be taken, what is the precise dosage, day, 4 times, whatever, and what are the medicines, how the medicines have to be taken, whether it is before the meals, during the meals, or after the meals, bedtime or before in the morning, and what happens if you miss a dose, and what happens if you start feeling to have better with the symptoms, should you leave the medications, and what are the drug interactions, what are the drug food interactions. So what are the short and long term risks associated, and what are the side effects expected and unexpected side effects? If at all you encounter the side effects, what should he do, and what is the cost of the medications, are they expensive? These are some of the questions that needs to be answered. Not only that, since we know that in the government setup, usually the patient doctors are loaded, they're understaffed, and they don't have the time, they don't have the staff, adequate staff. So it, the some amount of the responsibility lies on the patients also to complete this. Not only that, on the patients, there is one more responsibility of the patients. Speak to the doctor openly, give your family history, give your personal history, any allergic reactions to the drugs and allergic reactions to the food dyes, and you be specific. And if you're a woman, give your inform about your pregnancy status, or lactate. If you are lactating, please do inform. And this is one thing which we have to mention. There is I call this is for the doctors. This is for the doctors. Uh, this is a book called as Indian Drug Review, which is available in the medical bookstores. Please keep it as a reference for you, so that you can compare the drugs which are available in the market of the same brand and the combinations. There are various combinations available. They have given the indications very briefly. They have given the indications, contraindications, side effects, and also the cost of each of the medications. I think it is the responsibility of it's just not the responsibility only of the doctors, it is also the responsibility of the patients to contribute for the rationally prescribing, for the rational prescription, and making it more precise for the treatment strategies. We Next slide. So it is the role of the patients, the caretakers, and the doctors. All of them have role in implementing the rational prescription. So it is the what is an ideal prescription? The right drug for the right patient in the right dose by the right route at the right time. So all these R's, there are 8 R's of medication administration. If the 8 R's are in place, we can probably try to make the prescribing habits rational, and also we can prescribe with precision. I think I come to the end of my presentation. Thank you for your time and consideration. Wish you all a very happy new year.
Doctor, you're not audible, Dr. Pratibha. You're unmuted, but you're not audible. We still can't hear you, Doctor. We can see you, but we can't hear you. Doctor? Right. By the time Dr. Pratibha comes back with the audio, can we have the next speaker, please? Dr. Shivamurthy, can we have you?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, doctor, you're audible.
Okay. So now can I start sharing my screen? I think can you see my screen?
Yes, doctor, we can see your screen. Yes.
Okay. So can I start, or would you like to, can we have Dr. Pratibha having her word?
I think Dr. Pratibha is asking you to start, and meanwhile,
okay, go ahead.
You back. Yes. Thank you so much. Doctor.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. Veena. I think it was very nice presentation regarding how to do the proper prescription and who are all the stakeholders of the prescription. See, actually, like I would like to tell you that always, like we Indians, there are a lot of rules are there, and the first question will be asked is that like if you don't follow the rules, what will happen? So here Actually, these rules are for medical profession and for the health of the patients and for the purpose of giving the good care and maintaining the health. So here, if you don't follow the rules, then what can happen? Let us discuss now. So there is something called as adverse drug reactions. So I have a question. So do you think that medications are always helpful? I think no, they can put you into greater risk. Yes, definitely they can put us into greater risk because medicines are like double-edged sword. So you can use the sword for protecting yourself or hurt yourself. So if you don't, if the choice is yours, the drug should be used properly. Otherwise, definitely you'll be ending up with one
Uh,
of the
Dr.
other problem.
Shivmurthy, can you,
Yes.
Dr. Shivmurthy, sorry to interrupt, but I think there is a network issue
Yeah.
and your voice is breaking in the middle. Can you speak
Okay.
once
Some
again?
problem is there. Yeah. Just one.
You're audible now, doctor. Please continue.
Yeah. Can I continue?
Yes,
Okay,
doctor. Please
so my
continue.
question was, do you think that, yeah, yeah. My question was, do you think that medications are always safe? No, definitely they are not safe. They are like double-edged sword. So you can use this sword for protecting yourself or for protecting yourself. If you don't use them, if the sword falls on your neck, you're out. So similarly, drugs are also like that. Like if we are not using the drugs properly, and definitely they are going to trouble us. What are adverse drug reactions? Adverse drug reactions are unintended reaction to a drug taken at doses normally used in man is called as adverse event. So it means that any drug what you're taking, they have a possibility of causing one or the other adverse drug reaction, even if you are taking at the normal dose. Okay, normal dose means the dose that is prescribed for you in a proper way also. So in that case, there is a chance of some or the other adverse reaction that can happen. And suppose if it is found to be associated with the particular drug, then it is called as adverse drug reaction. This only difference is that like any reaction that happens after the intake of the drug is called as adverse event, and any adverse event which is considered to be related to a particular drug is called as adverse drug reaction. So now you can see my slides. I think you can see here there is a hypertrophy of the gum and also sulfur drug causing severe bullous epidermal necrolysis. So you can see that like drugs can cause such severe adverse events, and sometimes they can be life threatening and patient may die immediately also or after some time. So and phentermine can injure your, like it can produce the hypertrophy of your gum after taking for a certain period of time. So if you don't take care, if you don't follow the instructions, and also it's not that you only follow the instructions, you also need to come back and report to the doctor, come back and say that doctor, I am facing this problem. You can see here the discoloration of the teeth is seen when tetracyclines were used in childhood. If the if a baby or a child takes the tetracyclines for particular particular period of time, then there is chances of discoloration, and this is again like it is permanent. You cannot change. And there is a famous case of thalidomide disaster. What happened in 1960s? Pregnant women were advised to take thalidomide for morning sickness, and especially as you know that morning sickness, especially in pregnancy, happens in the first 3 months. or in the early part of the pregnancy where the organ development happens. And suddenly one day in 1961, William McBride, Dr. William McBride, he's a general practitioner. He sent one small letter to the journal, okay, Lancet journal, and then it was having the picture like this, and he described that thalidomide was given, and this is what he has seen. And apparently, it was found that during that period of time, more than 20,000 babies were born with this kind of deformity. It is such a great, disaster, and it is a black mark in the history of medicine. So, nobody would like to have such kind of, babies, and it's really disheartening to see even today there are few babies are born with this. It means that you can see that it has happened long back, nearly 40 to 50 years back, and still it has its effect. And 4 to 5, latestly it is found that the youngest victim currently available is 4 to 5 years. It means that it is still existing. But it is not the end. You can see that like as Veena said, like we take so many years, almost 15 years for developing a drug, and finally we find something and throw it away. That's not the solution also. Mainly, like in this case, definitely it has to be banned. It was banned, and later it was found that like after repurposing and then again researching, it was found that still it's a good drug. It can be used for multiple myeloma, erythema nodosum, leprosum, and leprosy, for reducing the inflammation. This kind of anti-inflammatory activity can be used, especially those who have already completed their family and they're not supposed to conceive again. So in those cases, definitely. So like this, most important is what I would like to say is it's important for us to understand the drug, listen to the medical professionals, and use appropriately. Now, it's not just life, it also money. Like we work so hard for earning money, and you can see that the cost of adverse events in UK itself, you can see that almost more than 2,000 general practitioners are dedicated for managing this adverse event. I mean, so much of manpower is going on, getting dedicated for managing the adverse events. And also, like if you convert that into nurses, almost 3,500 nurses are spending their time in managing the adverse event. And like what is the cost of adverse drug reactions management? In USA itself, in a year, adverse drug reactions may cost around $30.1 billion annually. It means that like it's so much of hard work is going on, going in this, and also so much of money is getting wasted here. And if we don't properly prescribe and properly use and also properly report and minimize the adverse events, then we will continue to waste our energy towards this. In addition, you can see that like basically most of the what happens after the adverse drug reaction, especially a serious one, hospitalization happens, then prolonged hospital stay, and again daily wages are lost, and additional clinical investigations are required so that so much of resources are used. Then estimated cost of preventable AEs. You can see that what I would like to say that almost all the adverse events are preventable. So if we can prevent, then like what is the amount of money we are going to save? Here you can see that in 5 years there is a report saying that 28 billion US dollars can be saved if we prevent the adverse events in 5 years. So now I think now we understood that what is adverse drug reaction, what is adverse event, and then what is the cost involved in that. Then how do we prevent the adverse drug reaction? So there are various stakeholders, as already said. There is a patient, there is a society, there is a rule, regulators, and the patient. So many people are there behind it, and also patient factors, individuality, genetic, which are some of the things are like like genetic things not in our hand. So, but still, like a lot of things can be considered for avoiding the adverse drug reactions. Most importantly, the first person to come in picture is doctor. So, as rightly said in the beginning itself, Veena and Madam also like Dr. Pratibha, that like doctors are known for scribbling and not giving the good handwriting, and that's the one of the most important reason, but that is not the only reason. Only reason that for inappropriate medicine. Now you can see that most importantly, the take home message for the doctors is that we should ensure that we follow the proper prescription method both right. Better is that now we have the electronic methods. We should have proper systems to ensure that proper method of prescription. Now coming back to the next reason, you can see that this is a very peculiar situation in India, where like a lot of manufacturers are there, more than 60,000 manufacturers are there, and so many brands are there, and everywhere everywhere a lot of manufacturers, and so much of drugs are used. I think one way like India is considered to be the hub of pharmacy of India, pharmacy of the world. On the other way, you can see that spurious medications are very high in India. So this is another this is one peculiar situation where you can see that Amzole 200 suspension, which contains the albendazole, which is a antihelminthic. Another one is Amzole, that is the 2% ointment, which is a antifungal. And one more Amzole is there, which is pantoprazole 40 mg is there. So you can see that pantoprazole, as all of you know, it is used for treating the peptic ulcer and the peptic ulcer, so or the stomach ache. One is antihelminthic, another is antifungal, another is one more is anti-ulcer agent. So they are not at all related, both chemically and also they are not at all related to the particular therapeutic area. Suppose I am a doctor and if I prescribe Amzole just like that, and then you can see that there is a tablet of 200 mg, 40 mg, and what will happen to the poor pharmacist who is having maybe a D pharma, B pharma, and how much so if a person of that kind, if he gives the drug to the patient, and suppose if he is suffering from fungal infection, then if he takes albendazole or pantoprazole, so no way it is going to help him. So I think this was this made buzz in WhatsApp for a long time, and then it came into the attention of the regulators. Then they changed the rules, rule number 71 and 76 of Drugs and Cosmetic Act. Here they said that no brand should be registered having the similar spelling or similar pronunciation, and which may mask the other brand. So that kind of regulations they came, and also they have to fill the form 51, and names of the drug, dosage form, and composition should be properly mentioned and then registered. Now the regulations also have says that suppose an earlier one formulation is registered. Suppose example is some cold formulation having the herbal drug, okay, drugs, and then it became so popular, and now it is containing the earlier it was having herbal medication, now it is having the allopathic medication. So, but the brand is the same because they don't want to leave that brand. They want to leverage the advantage of that brand, popular brand. And now they are saying that now they have changed the ingredient, but the same brand is maintained. So I, being a doctor or a general public, I may consider that being 40-year-old, my earlier generation people, they will say that it may be a herbal population, herbal drug, and they will continue to buy that particular brand. But ironically, you can see that it is containing allopathic drug. So this kind of practices have been put on break from now onwards, and if the composition is changed, you cannot retain the same brand name. So brand name should be changed if the composition is changed. This is a good rule. Next comes is the other factors related to the adverse drug reaction. You can see here comorbidities. So the adverse drug reaction can happen with inappropriate prescription, inappropriate intake, and inappropriate so many things. But also, like, generally diabetes patient is tend to have the, almost most of the patients will have hypertension and diabetes coexisting together. And if they have to go for another, surgery or something, then, it can put the patient into, additional medication, and it may disturb the existing diseases, and also it may end up having more problem. Now you can see that, when COVID patients came in, when COVID virus came in, hypertensive and diabetes who were suffering for longer, they were more susceptible. Similarly, the drugs are, when we are taking additional drugs for the purpose of maybe respiratory infection, and if the person is already having diabetes and hypertension, there can be chances of alteration of metabolism, excretion, or the pharmacodynamics. Pharmacodynamics means the action of the one of the drug may be either increased or decreased. So that will lead to changes in the reaction, body reaction, and also it can lead to adverse drug reactions. So one more thing is food and drug interactions. So it's always a question that, like when a patient, when they go home, then the first question they may call the doctor and ask, "Doctor, you gave me the medicine. Should I take before food or after food?" Best is that, like when patient is there inside the clinic or hospital, it is important for us to have a conversation with the patient and then inform them what is the way to take the medication, whether they have to take with food, without food, or before food, after food, or after giving 4 hours after the food or 3 hours after food, something like that. It should be discussed, and what food to be taken. Most of the, allopathic medications, if the food has to be taken, then, normal food can be taken, or there can be, like you can see here that, like if a person is taking coffee or tea, and if a person is also like an asthmatic and he is supposed to take salbutamol, then there are chances of getting the palpitation, because coffee and tea can also produce the palpitation, and salbutamol definitely has a particular adverse event called as palpitation, and one another can add to each other and it can increase the palpitation. Another most important problem is polypharmacy. Polypharmacy means one patient taking more than one drug. As I said earlier, hypertension, diabetes, these are generally coexist. And if a person is already on beta blocker, then angiotensin receptor blocker, and then calcium channel blocker. So, and also antidiabetics like linagliptin and metformin and empagliflozin. Suppose if one more medication is added, like alpha 1 blocker like silodiodosin and dutasteride. So if they are added, in that case, what can happen? Definitely, patient may have the drug interaction will definitely be there. And here, this is one of the live case what I'm discussing. One patient was having diabetes, hypertension, and that person again detected with benign hypertension, benign prostatic hypertrophy. In that case, when they added the additional drugs, then patient again reported back to the hospital with a severe fall and head injury. So this can happen due to the hypotension, or because of the, like, alpha blocker is also there, beta blocker is also there, and there can be severe blockage due to the addition of calcium channel blocker and telmisartan. So all these added together, the patient may have hypotension, and finally the patient may have some kind of injuries like this, what we discussed. And one more factor what we need to keep in consideration is patient is pregnant or lactating mother, because if the patient is in early part of the pregnancy, then the chance of having the congenital anomalies in the newborn babies. So this this can lead to the major problem. In addition, suppose like there is a cancer patient in the house and also a pregnant lady, and if we mix up these medications together, and if the lady takes the methotrexate and the cancer patient takes the metoclopramide, so cancer patient may not be benefited because he is not taking the anti-cancer drug, but there can be a very deleterious effect on the pregnant lady and growing embryo. So if a pregnant lady takes anti-cancer drug, definitely there will be an abortion, and finally, it can be very dangerous effect. So this kind of things can also happen because of mix and match of the medication, and also there is a chance that when if a metoclopramide is written and the person mistakes and he gives the methotrexate, then there can be issues also. So it's important for us to, after purchasing, better to verify with the physician and see whether the right kind of medications have been given, and it can be taken further. And also, adverse events can happen because of some of the excipients, like Rantac is a very famous case. Recently, all these days, we have been using Rantac since so many years, and suddenly it was found that like there is a cancer-causing impurity in that, like N nitrosodimethylamine, so NDMA, and finally it was banned for some time, and now it is so like this, some of the things can also happen, so we need to be careful. And herbal drugs and drug interactions. So herbal drug interactions, this is generally like being in India, there are so many pathis are there: homeopathy, allopathy, Ayurveda, Siddha. So many pathis are there. So in that case, this question will always arise. So whether the it's always considered that Ayurvedic drugs will not have any adverse events. So, but it's not so always. There can be chances that there can be herbal drug interactions, and famous example is grapefruit juice, and it can induce the CYP 450, and there can be chances of either injury or some kind of metabolism alteration, and this can lead to the toxicities, or altered metabolism can lead to, and finally, and tea. One more is generally we consume tea, and the tea will have the tannin. It will complex with calcium and other drugs, so it can always inhibit the absorption of important drugs like tetracyclines. So like this, there will be some kind of interactions. And also, most important problem in India is self-medication. You go stand in front of the pharmacy, you can see n number of medications are handed over. Especially, I don't have any problem with paracetamol and one or two doses, but there can be chances that like antibiotics like ciprofloxacin or ofloxacin, or even higher antibiotics, carbamazepine, imipenem. So all these things are handed to the patients without any prescriptions. Majority of the drugs are restricted drugs, and they should not be handed over to the patient without prescription. This practice is not at all practice, and it is very dangerous, and this can lead to a lot of adverse events also. And especially diabetic patient and hypertensive patient, when they take the additional drugs, then definitely there can be chances of having drug interactions and lead to the more problems. And also, poor quality of medicine. Quality of medicine is a very important concern we should always express, and we should always be concerned about it. And also, like generics. So it's always like generics means poor quality of medicine. It may not be right also. But what I would like to say that in India we should make it mandatory to have the bioequivalence studies and establish, similar to how the Europeans and USA, FDA, US FDA people insist. We should also insist that like to ensure the proper quality of medication, whether it is any in between, there should be checks balance with that to ensure quality of medicine is correct and all the GMP practices are properly followed. So in the famous case here, what happened recently in last September, November, 10 patients developed the like loss of vision, and it was found that the intraocular gel that was used, active gel 2%, which contained the pseudomonas, and unfortunately, so many people lost their vision, and as you know, it's a permanent defect which cannot be corrected. And expired drugs is the another issue, and everyone should be careful about this. Like ensure that whenever you are purchasing, you are seeing whenever you are prescribing also, like if your patient come back, comes back to the doctor and ask for the verification, most important section on the expiry date, manufacturing date, and if the shelf life is already over, and this can lead to Fanconi, like especially tetracyclines can lead to Fanconi syndrome, that is kidney disease, like convoluted tubule of kidney may get affected, and finally a lot of issues can be seen. And also, like after taking continuously uncontrolled NSAIDs, joint pain, like so it can lead to peptic ulcer. And also, if a person is sensitive or the drug goes and deposit under the skin and then get exposed to, if it is a photochromatic drug, then there can be chances of changing the chemical formula, and then it can lead to eruptions. So a lot of issues can be seen with the these kind of things. And also liver injury, repeated intake of paracetamol, high dose, especially in the children, can lead to liver injury. And also some of the drugs like anti-TB drugs taken for long, and alcohol consumption for long can also lead to injury. Pregnancy, as I said, if a person takes the medication, sometimes like epilepsy is a condition where they are supposed to continue taking the medication, so it can lead to teratogenic defects in the baby. And so one need to be careful about. Yes, madam.
Can you hear me? Yeah. You have another 5 minutes.
Yes, madam.
Yeah.
Okay, madam. I'll just, I'm about to almost complete. So just like just to tell you that there are so many things can come in front of you. So many drugs produce so much of adverse events. What can happen? Like what is the system available here? Are they foolproof? Definitely, we have a foolproof system, and India is definitely following the international guidelines. And also, we have a very stringent rule. Now you can see COVID. It was approved in so many countries, but still in India, it is still under the discussion. So we have proper systems in place, and benefit risk will be taken into always consideration whether it is useful for India or not. Proper data is available or not. All these things are considered. And there is a phase 1 to phase 4 trials are there, preclinical trials before coming into clinical research. So there is it is important for us to consider all these adverse events what I just discussed. And like if what happens, like during the clinical trial, like during clinical trial, we only consider a very limited population, maybe 1,000 patients, 5,000 patients. In that case, like how much adverse events, how much details can be found out. We can try to find, in general, there is no problems, or overall, is it okay to go ahead? This kind of questions can be answered in the clinical trial. But when we come to the clinical practice, so lakhs and lakhs of people are start taking the medication. At that time, there is definitely chances of getting the report adverse events more. And my only appeal is everyone should report the adverse drug reactions as and when you see. And even if it is a repeated adverse events, it's important for us to report, and this will lead to continuous mapping of the drug, and adverse drug reactions will be mapped. And there is a program called Pharmacovigilance Program of India, and through this program, I think I will just get into this program here. So this the most important objective of this pharmacovigilance program is to collect all the adverse drug reactions in one place, and then analyze them, and then see whether the drug can stay in the market or it should go out. This is the format available online, and anyone can download, and generally it contains the demographic information, and also when the drug was taken, when the adverse event was identified, and what are the problems identified, and what is the drug that is suspected, which are the other drugs that were taken along with that. So all these details should be collected and reported. And what happens after reporting? Definitely, you can see here one drug was released, that is benoxaprofen. It was released in 1982, and it was removed in 1982 itself. So in 1 year period. So like this, there are chances that if the issues are definitely not suitable, and the drugs will be removed from the market. And not only that, that's not the only solution, but there can be change in the label also, like whether to use the drug or in a particular condition. Children, like example is nimesulide should not be used in children. Earlier, when it is released, everyone used to use. Now it is stopped. Similarly, COX-2 inhibitors again it should not be used in cerebrovascular, cardiovascular events cases. Okay, so this is like that. So just to conclude, all drugs can cause adverse events. Caution required while using the drugs. Medicines should be dispensed only after prescribed by registered medical practitioners. Special caution required while using drugs in pregnancy, pediatric age, and geriatric age group. All areas should be reported. This will help to take further action. Adverse drug reaction should be reported even if it is a known adverse event, and this will help to have better medicines in market. All healthcare workers and patients, citizens have responsibility to report adverse drug reactions. So this is all about, just to give you information here. You can see that there is a email ID. So this is our adverse event monitoring center's address. So please do report your adverse events to here, and we would like to get more and more so that we'll report and have a proper drugs in market. Thank you very much, madam. Hello.
Doctor, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, doctor, you're audible.
So, thank you, Dr. Shivamurthy. It was a great discussion. Since I have not introduced Dr. Shivamurthy, I would like the audience to know about him. Dr. Shivamurthy is now Associate Professor of Pharmacology at Dr. Chandrama Dayanand Sagar Institute of Medical Education and Research. And he also, like Dr. Veena, has been a gold medalist at the Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences during his MD career. He has published several papers and also got awards for his presentations. And he has worked in many organizations and has been director of bioavailability, bioequivalence establishments at various places. And I should say he has got multiple competencies in terms of, I should say, pharmaceutical industry is concerned. And now he is very passionate about academics and research, and therefore we are working together in the same place. So it was a nice talk, Dr. Shivamurthy. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Veena. That also was a very informative session. Yeah. So now we have few questions from the audience. Maybe Dr. Veena, would you like to answer this? Before that, there are doubts regarding personalized medicine and precision medicine. The title which we have chosen today is Prescribe with Precision. It actually, we have not dedicated this to precision medicine or personalized. However, few questions have come, we'll take on that. Before that, somebody has asked, polypharmacy, which has come in both of your presentations. I would like to have both your opinions. Polypharmacy is also because of multiple physicians prescribing. So what happens is one patient is not happy with one doctor, so he visits another doctor and then he also prescribes. So there is actually no connectivity between the two. So the patient may be confused and as a result ends up taking multiple pills because one doctor may not be aware of the other doctor's prescription. So how do we tackle this? And you have an answer, Dr. Veena, and then we go to Dr. Shivamurthy, because both are, one is irrational prescription, another one it may contribute to ADR. So I would like to hear from both of you. Dr. Veena?
Polypharmacy is one of the reason for irrational prescription also. So polypharmacy is one of the burning problem here. So the only way to tackle multiple polypharmacy is evaluating a proper history. You need to evaluate.
Yeah, question is they are directed to another, they themselves may go or they may direct to another physician. So how do we prevent that?
No, Madam, polypharmacy usually happens in chronic disorders, for chronic progressive disorders such as metabolic syndromes such as diabetes, hypertension, hyperlipidemia, asthma, like chronic disorders like asthma, bronchitis. So the one thing is you need to know that polypharmacy usually happens in these diseases. So it is better to evaluate the history previous history, previous drug history. And also, it is better to have a protocol, and also a protocol, as I was telling you, the steps to make the prescribing practices more rational. You need to have a protocol in place, and also to have an inventory. And the other important thing is monitor them, personally monitor them. I know it is very difficult in the government setup, but you need to do some, you need to have some rule in place. You have to bring some rule. So I would say it is about the history, making a evaluate the history, drug history, make a protocol, make a inventory, make a formulary, and monitor the patients.
Okay, Dr. Shivamurthy, any suggestions from you?
Madam, regarding this polypharmacy, like it's very important for us to one is take the history, and also
Yeah.
like can we like since the electronic media, electronic data capture, which is
Yeah.
nowadays becoming very rampant, and if we can use the technology, if we can use the technology, suppose in a medical college there are various departments are there, and if we have the same case sheet accessed through online, and in that case, whenever like we can have a tab whenever we prescribe the drug like a drug, another drug, addition of the drug, it can ask permission whether this drug can have the issue related to like suppose one like alpha blocker. If you are using beta blocker plus alpha blocker or any addition of another antihypertensive, it can have a block, or it can ask for the permission. See, please can you verify this is really going to trouble the patient. And it can also
Yeah.
like due to the artificial intelligence, it can also track the earlier cases and say that this happened earlier. So like this, if
Correct.
we can have a system, like electronic system, foolproof system, that can really
Yeah.
help us in avoiding the adverse events.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think
Great. So,
Madam, I
yeah.
think I can add a point on this. I think Dr. Pratibha Madam and me had worked on this is something called as in silico modeling. We had worked
Yeah.
for arthritis. That is where we call it as a protocol in silico modeling of the drugs, where you need to have categorize the drugs and work out on these drugs, the complete details of these drugs, and what happens if you stop the drug and move on to the drug, what happens if another drug is added. So this, I think Dr. Pratibha Madam and we had worked for arthritis. This is
Yeah. Yeah.
something called as in silico modeling. So we need to
Yeah.
bring in the concept of in silico modeling for all the various uh, divisions, like various fraternities. For
Yes.
various diagnoses, for various diseases, we need to make a
Correct.
in silico modeling, which
Correct.
captures,
So,
as Dr. Shumurthy rightly said, this in
yeah.
silico modeling captures, automatically captures everything, all the data, and it says whether you need
Yeah. Hello.
whether you need to add another drug, or whether you need to
Yeah.
remove, decrease the drug or deprescribe. So the complete details are given.
Correct. So it's nice that both of you have come out with the technology-based solutions. So that's really interesting. I would also like to add something that one of the participants has asked this question. So when here the responsibility of the patients, as Dr. Veena rightly said, it is important to spend some time on asking by the important responsibility by the doctor to ask the patient where all he has visited and to see his prescriptions first. If not, the patient has to self-report, and he should not hesitate. The doctor should not hesitate to see what his other colleagues have prescribed in order to avoid multiple prescriptions. So this communication, as Dr. Veena and Dr. Shimurthy had told, communication is extremely important. It is bilateral, by way. The patient has to speak out. The doctor also has to ask. If the patient doesn't speak out, let the doctor ask. And if the doctor is not asking, still let the patient speak. So it's a two-way communication, which is extremely important in order to prevent the polypharmacy-induced drug-drug interactions. Thank you for that, for both of you.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, okay. One more thing is, uh, the efficacy of drugs. When you prescribe the medications, some of them show response tremendously, like you said, nebivolol, calcium channel blockers, CRB. Some of them show the response, but in others it is not seen. At the same time, few of them show adverse drug reactions, some of them do not show. What is the basis for this? Dr. Veena, Dr. Shiva-Dr, you can say why few patients develop adverse drug reactions and some of them do not develop. Is
Okay.
there any change or is there any individual makeup, something you can add on to this?
Yes, madam. Definitely. Like there is a genetic makeup, especially like
Correct.
we have slow metabolizers and
Yes.
fast metabolizers, or there can be some SNPs, like a single nuclear
Mm.
peptide. So
Yes.
nucleotide peptides. So these these will decide the genetic makeup of the person, and this
Correct.
can lead to the like varied response, a varied
Okay.
response, and also inter-individual differences can be expected. That is why reporting of adverse events, because
Mm.
these are not detected when we are having the small sample size and in a very structured clinical trial. We will not be able to identify these. So any patient experience any of this kind, if it is reported, it will be of very very helpful information, and it will
Correct.
help us to do further research and identify this kind of SNPs, and then come up with the precision medicine, or what do you call it, as personalized medicines also.
Very good. Okay. Dr. Veena, do you think that is essential
Yes,
for
madam. There is
individual
a great
variability?
deal. There is a great deal of individual variability when it comes to the altered drug response. There are various factors that modify the drug action. We have to look into those factors. It's whether it comes to the body size, age, and Dr. Shivamurthy rightly said it's about the genetics. There are key determinants for the drug response. It can be at the level of transporters, metabolic enzymes, ionic channels, receptors, couplers, so many things. So the we need to bring in the genetic composition. So this is a very new concept to our country. As we already know, making when we are making the guidelines or when we are prescribing, we usually depend on the foreign guidelines. That is because we
Correct.
don't have the database. That was the
Correct.
reason why Dr. Shumarthi was stressing that each and every ADR should be reported. Even the smallest, even the commonest and the rarest, all ADRs should be reported so that we have our own database. We look at this
Correct.
own database because the genetic makeup of our Indian setup is different when it compared to the rest of the world. So we need to study this. And as we know that this pharmacogenomics is a new thing which is happening. All these days, the clinical trials never address the genomic component in the trial. So there is a genetic component which needs to be addressed, and I think in the coming years pharmacogenomic or the genomic component will definitely be addressed. That was the reason many of them are asking about precision medicine.
Yes. Correct. All right. Thank you.
So there is
So,
definitely a individual uh, variability in the response, drug
maybe
response.
yes. Yes. So, the whole world, there are many questions. Maybe we could answer them. Shruti, do we have another 5 minutes or we take them later, the questions?
We can take it later, doctor. No problem.
Okay. So,
You can post it in.
we'll post them. Yes. Thank you, audience. Now I'm coming to this point: precision medicine, personalized medicine. Our that is a little higher end, and world over, it is not become. It has still not become a routine practice to screen the patients to decide on the dose or the choice of the medication. It is not routine. However, there are some centers such as KM Hospital or Jipmar in Pondicherry and many others who have already entered, and there are certain diagnostic kits which have come which will detect the which can predict the adverse drug reactions based on the genetic makeup. So there's a long way to go, but this session was basically designed to bring precision without actually going into higher technologies. What are our practical ways of looking into precise prescriptions, understanding the patient, communicating with the patient, understanding his unique characteristics such as drug allergies, comorbidities, concomitant medications, as both the speakers have beautifully described. So that was the purpose of this session, and I'm so happy that both of them have been able to cover it up in a very given short time. My concluding remarks would be that it is essential for all practice. All three of us are pharmacologists, but after an extensive experience, we realized that we could be of some support to the prescribers, to the physicians, And if any kind of suggestions or information or advice is sought, maybe we are approachable and we are very eager to help, more than happy to help. Keeping that in mind, we would suggest the doctors spend sufficient time with the patient, understand and update on the latest developments in medications, understand regulations, give your prescriptions completely. If you are running out of time, please take the help of nurses, clinical pharmacists, or anybody. Talk to the caretakers and ensure that your prescription is successful, because you would have spent a lot of time studying and qualifying yourself and updating. If it doesn't result in proper therapy, then it is not going to be useful, and unnecessarily the patient should not blame the doctor. Second thing is, patients, dear patients, when you go and see the doctors, do not search the Google extensively and try to make your own diagnosis. Trust the doctors, and if you are interested in reading the literature, get into the package inserts which come along with the medicines. There's a literature there. If you want to know more, please read that rather than getting confused with Google. I would say trust your doctors and communicate with the doctors. It is responsibility of the patients also for successful treatment. It's not only the doctors, it is your responsibility to adhere to the medications, take the medications at the right time, in the whatever has been prescribed to you at that particular time, in that particular schedule. Do not feel lazy. Do not hesitate to spend some money and visit doctors rather than self medication or taking the medication from the pharmacist, because pharmacists are definitely experienced, but they cannot individualize. They cannot give you a prescription with precision. This can be given only by qualified physicians. Therefore, it is a combined effort of doctors. It's a teamwork, doctor as well as the patient, to bring about successful and safe therapy. Thank you, one and all. If there are any questions on the YouTube, we would definitely answer them and clear your doubts. Thank you very much for the speakers, Shruti and
Thank
Project
you.
Step.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so
ma'am.
much, doctors. Thank you so much for this wonderful session and for clearly mentioning by taking the exact scenarios to make us understand how careful one must be while prescribing medications, and one should not rely on Google for taking any
Yes.
sort of medicine. So, thank you so much for making it so simple and understandable. And I mean, must thank you for taking time off the busy schedule and doing this wonderful session for us. Thank you so much for that. And dear viewers, you know what to do. So please stay tuned for our next session, which is going to be very, very interesting. About this is going to be about vaccines and the new strain of coronavirus that is being seen. And we will be coming back next week at the same time, that is at 5 o'clock. Apart from that, you know what to do. You need to go like our page on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. For more information on Project Step One, visit www.projectstep1.org. Thank you so much. Stay safe
Thank
and
you.
take care of yourself and have a great year ahead. Thank you so much,
Thank
doctors.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.